Hey everyone, I wanted to give you a little bit more of an in-depth look at my laser Graflex that you've probably seen annoying the Saber groups for the last 3 months or so. So this Saber build is essentially it's an ESB configuration is what it is, with a custom printed housing inside that I've designed to accommodate a Sanwoo 470 nanometer 4700 milliwatt cyan laser with 3 times beam expander in the end here. And the way I've mounted that inside the laser is inside the Saber, sorry, is partly with the 3D printed housing that I've made for it. But I'm actually using the bunny ears clamp here to clamp down on the beam expander itself, which is it's the perfect way of holding it, really. And I'm also using a fairly non-traditional screw here, which, you know, isn't very screen accurate or whatever, but it does a good job of holding the 3D printed housing to this top section, because this is kind of one specific piece now. So underneath this white cap, there's a Profi board 2.2 that was provided to me by Dimitri, so thanks a lot for that. And it also uses two 16650 batteries in the bottom of this. Now, the reason I've used two is because the laser itself needs 7.4 volts to run, and the Profi requires 3.7 volts-ish to run. So what I've done is at the very back here, I've got a voltage step-down converter. So it takes the two batteries, runs it through the converter, powers the board, but then the batteries themselves go straight to the laser, and the MOSFETs on the Profi are used to regulate that power going to the laser. So I know it's very traditional to use 18650s in a Saber, sorry, because they're so easy to find, but these 16650s are a little bit thinner. They've still got really good capacity, and you can fit two of them next to each other in the base of a Graflex. So that was kind of my selling point for that. So you can kind of see inside. I've done a terrible wiring job, so I'll keep that to myself. I might post a picture of it later, but yeah, so it runs on those two batteries like that, and they snap in very nicely like that. There you go, just like that. So I've got two batteries in there. And then up here I've got my main kill switch. This, you might have noticed, isn't the traditional one from the TGS Graflex kit. So what I've done here is I've designed this piece in CAD myself with a little square hole underneath it, because underneath that is just a regular kill switch, and then I've used that as a kind of kill switch for the power going to the main board. And then there's a couple of cables here for the ignition button and the kill switch that come down here back to the Profi, but that's the only like exposed wiring really. So yeah, I've had to do a little bit of non-traditional work up here as well. I've had to use short pins, but instead of screwing into the top of this, I've had to place some 2.5mm nuts on the inside of the 3D print here to actually secure it. I'm not actually using a standard blade holder because the beam expander is just a little bit too wide for those 1-inch blade holders. So yeah, there you go, that's kind of the main bit. So put it back together, and yes, I know I got the clamp the wrong way around, but it's kind of personal preference. It feels more comfortable for me. But yeah, there you go. So that's the main build, and we'll just power it up. Of course, got to include the Lego Yoda death noise in there. So obviously I've got a kind of regular ESB configuration here. So this button will cycle the sound font. This button will ignite the Saber. Right, sorry for the cut there. It was acting up a little bit, and I'll admit to you, my wiring isn't amazing. This is weirdly my first actual Saber build. So yeah, it actually works now. So if I turn this on, you can see that expanded blue beam in there is so bright. So obviously using this I've got to be careful. It probably won't ever even leave this room. So igniting it. You get all the standard sound font stuff that you get with a Profi. And it works in exactly the same way, except instead of using like a tri-cree LED, it uses a enormous laser, which is, you know, unique. And the advantages that provides is that something that you can't do with tri-cree or NeoPixel, which is this. Yeah, it actually does some damage and it can pop balloons like that, which is an added bonus, and it makes it even closer to a real lightsaber. Now, this thing's really heavy as well. It weighs about a kilo or about 2.2 pounds. Now, I don't really know traditional saber weights, but this thing is properly heavy. So what you can do with this laser as well is you can take the beam expander and the focusing cap out of it, and then you get about an inch of space on the inside of the blade holder, which means that you can actually put a blade in there and use it as a sort of ridiculously bright tri-cree LED, which I will show you now. Here's that wiring job if you are curious. It's not amazing, but it does the job. So there we go. If I take the beam expander and the focusing lens off, then you're left with the just the laser diode, just like that. And now what I can do is I can put it back inside the Graflex on the top here. And what I've got is I've got a contact point around about here on the inside that touches the positive contact of the laser, and then I've got a tiny little spring just here that touches the inside of the laser, which is the negative contact. And then I can put a blade in the top, like that. And then at some point, I plan to swap that screw out to be the retention screw for this kind of blade as well. So let me just reassemble this now. So there you go, it's now back together, and I can turn this on now and run it as if it was just a very normal tri-cree LED saber. Except it's got the brightness of a NeoPixel blade. And it's really, really bright. I think it might even be brighter than a NeoPixel. It's difficult to look at. But yeah, there you go. So that is all of the details with my laser Graflex. I'm considering working on doing this as like a slightly more refined version, and providing you guys with some of the plans if you want to make your own or do something like that. But yeah, there you go. I hope you guys like it, and you know, you enjoy this slightly different saber build. But yeah, there you go. Thanks everyone for having a look at this, and I'll see you guys later.